2024 Rookie of the Year. You heard it here first. I'm not making this up. This is the way that it is. And there's not really much that anybody can do about that. Now, barring injury. So there is a possibility that Caleb Williams ends up getting injured. And by the way, I know that there are a lot of people out here who still like Justin Fields. I know there are a lot of people out here that don't like Caleb Williams because at one point he painted his fingernails, because at one point he hugged his mother after a loss. I know there are a lot of people who have problems with Caleb Williams, and it's fair. I mean, if you don't like somebody for some random reason, sure. However, here's the thing. You're not going to be able to stop this offense. You're not going to be able to contain the Chicago Bears of 2024. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try. And in fact, the first couple of games of the season are going to be a very big test because each one of those teams is going to be around the level that most people are expecting the Chicago Bears to be. It is my opinion that this team is going to be far better than the sum of its parts right now, and that we're going to look at a team that's really ready to compete at the big time levels of these other guys. This is the start of a new era. In fact, there it is right there. It starts off with, let's let the kid play a preseason game before we plan the parade. Shaking my head. Well, sorry, Jose, or as they say, no way, Jose, because ESPN is already speculating on Rookie of the Year. So why don't you pamp that shit down and don't ask me to pamp my shit down? In fact, NFL.com has already put out their presumptive Rookies of the Years. DraftKings have already allowed gambling on the Rookie of the Year. And guess who the favorite is? You guessed right if you said Caleb Williams. If you didn't care what Jose said and you went with Caleb Williams, you were right. Because guess what? Here's what is going on, right? Here's what's going on. We've put together what could be the best offense the Chicago Bears have ever seen. Now, I realize that I'm offending those of you who are old enough to remember Sweetness. I realize that I'm offending those of you old enough to remember Gale Sayers. But they didn't have elite quarterbacks. Now, there was a Super Bowl involved. I want to say 40 some odd years ago, 39 years ago, whatever. There was a Super Bowl involved. Sure. There are a couple of them like to shuffle, but at no point did we have the offense capable of producing in the manner and in the way that this offense is capable of producing. And I think that we have a team that's ready to excel. Now, why do I think that? Because I'm crazy, because I'm a psycho. I don't know. But I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, Caleb Bleeves will be the Rookie of the Year. And why, you might ask? Well, let's kind of break down what is it about this whole team. And listen, I'm going to give you statistics that are going to blow your mind for any team. Now, will all of these people continue to live up to the hype? No, it's impossible. There's no way that it can happen. But it's not about them getting all of their statistics. It doesn't really matter. What matters is the capability and the capacity of the players on the team in order to do this. I watched the last Super Bowl championship. I'm not going to count my chickens before they are hatched. Too many disappointing years. Okay. We've all been disappointed. We've all not liked some of the things that we've seen. We've all saw Jay Cutler come in, throw for a bunch of yards, but get sacked over and over and over again, and have a defense that couldn't stop anybody, that allowed for the deterioration of the entire team. We all saw Mitchell Trubisky get into the playoffs and double doink with Cody Parkey. We all witnessed it. We all saw it. We all feel almost the same way. This time is different. Why is this time different? Look, you can disagree and you can be like, oh, I'm going to wait for it all to play out. And that's fair enough because you have a certain way about doing it. But without the hype, what are you even excited for? Like, why not get excited? It's still sports. And guess what? You're going to see your team do their very best on the field. The question always is is their best going to be good enough? And previously, there's been reasons to think that maybe it would be better, and it hasn't been. There's been reasons to think that maybe it would be a little bit improved, and it hasn't been. Well, guess what? This time is going to be different. And we saw the turning of the corner towards the end of last season. And most of this team is back. And we've upgraded every single position. There's no downgrades. There's no, well, I guess we're just going to have to let this one ride. We've upgraded every single position, both with time and with familiarity with the system and with prospects and or free agents that we've brought in. And we're going to start with Caleb Williams. And that's the big one on the block. Caleb Williams last year, 266 for 388, 68.6% completions, 3,633 yards passing, an average of 9.4 yards per completion, 30 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions, 76-yard long. He was sacked 33 times. It's about 3 times per game, by the way. So we're not going to like that. We're going to want to see him continue to improve, and we want to give him better protection. But listen, he was running for his life in the offensive line. Same as 2022, by the way. Nothing changed. And in 2022, 66.6% completion, 4,500 yards, 9.1 yards per completion, 42 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, sacked 30 times. Now, if we just consider these statistics, then we know that we have a decent talent. Let's just not even call him elite. Let's just say we've got a decent talent that actually has the ability and the capacity to move a team down the field. He's shown it. And look, we had that before. I'm not underlying the fact that we did have that with Justin Fields. It just didn't work out. But we got it again. And here's the difference. The difference is what we didn't have previously with Justin Fields were tools to build around. We didn't have Cole Kmet coming into his own, if you will, until this final season. We didn't have that happening. We didn't have DJ Moore. We didn't have all of the pieces in place to complement those two guys. They were it. That was it. That was the offense. Khalil Herbert, he did okay. Roshan Johnson, I think he did better than Khalil Herbert overall, but they both did okay. But they were caught in a situation in which the team was not ready to compete. The team was not ready to be the winner that we're looking at. So Caleb Williams, a total of 8,100 yards over the last 2 seasons, averaging over 4,000 yards per season, averaging 36 touchdown passes per season, averaging 5 interceptions, 36 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. This is the kind of guy that we hope to have on the team. Now, does it translate to the NFL? I don't know that. I know that it's imperative upon the team to make it as easy a transition as it possibly can be. And that's why I'm excited. Caleb Williams has been planning for this since he was 10 years old. He is ready for this moment, and he is not fazed by any of this. He's not overwhelmed by the money. He's not overwhelmed by the fame. The guy's already famous. He's not overwhelmed by it anymore. He's not overwhelmed by the money. He made more in college than he's going to make in his first season in the NFL. He makes more. He's built for this moment. Whether or not we can translate that into success remains to be seen. That would be a fair assessment. So Caleb Williams, definitely Rookie of the Year. Now, why? Right here. Let's start with this right here. There are incredible players that are sitting around waiting for this moment. Now, let me also state that the current odds for Caleb Williams is plus 250, with Marvin Harrison being second at plus 550 for Offensive Rookie of the Year odds, Malik Neighbors at plus 800, Jaden Daniels at plus 800, and Rome Odunze at plus 1100. Why? If you think Rome Odunze is the best catch of the draft and he's the steal of the draft, why would he be so low? Well, because you can't have 2 Rookies of the Year, and it's all going to flow through Caleb, and he's the quarterback. So there's no chance, in my opinion, that Rome Odunze outshadows Caleb Williams, unless Rome Odunze comes out and has 1,600 yards received. Like, it'd have to be some crazy number. He would have to do what he did in college in the NFL for something like that to happen. So it's not going to happen. So this is Caleb's to win or lose. Okay. Then you have Drake May at 1,100, JJ McCarthy at 1,600, Michael Penix at 1,800, Brock Bowers 2,200. Just goes down from there. Now that is that's one analysis. DraftKings, however, has even better odds, saying that Caleb is at plus 200, Marvin Harrison at 600, Jaden Daniels 650, JJ McCarthy 800, Malik Neighbors at 1,200. This is current, by the way. So there are. And Roma doesn't even make that list until you get past 1,200. Again, it's the same reasoning, because there's just no way, short of him continuing to do his same stats in college that he did in the pros. And that's not possible. That's not possible because of what you're seeing right here, because of Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift. So let's break down, what is it about Keenan Allen? Well, in 2023, Keenan Allen played in 13 games, had 108 receptions out of 150 targets, 1,243 receiving yards, averaging 11.5 yards per catch. Receiving yards a game, 95.6. Receiving touchdowns, 7. He had 2 attempts at rushing. But, I mean, guys, let's face this. He had 108 receptions, 1,243 yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns in 13 games for the Chargers last year. That is what we brought into the fold. What did we replace? We replaced Darnell Mooney, 39 receptions, 34 receptions, 400 yards, nothing, basically nothing, right? We didn't get the value out of Darnell Mooney that we were looking to get out of him. Well, who else do we have? Well, we got DJ Moore. And what did DJ Moore do last year? DJ Moore had 17 games played, he stayed healthy all season, which was fantastic. What did he get? 96 receptions out of 136 targets, 1,364 receiving yards, an average of 14.2 yards per reception, and 8 touchdowns. He had a couple rushes. But, I mean, guys, the stat line, 17 game played, 96 receiving yards. 96 receptions, 1,364 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. Now we have bookends that averaged over 1,100 yards receiving, one of them in 13 games. Had it been over a full season with the extra 4 games thrown in, who knows? This could have been one of those record-setting years for Keenan Allen. Now, is Keenan Allen on the downside? That's the question. Well, according to his stats, nope. According to his stats, he's been a phenomenal athlete and player for whatever team is lucky enough to have him. So let's move on a step further. Who's the next guy? DeAndre Swift. What did we give? What did we give Caleb Williams to work with in DeAndre Swift? And this offense, 16 games played, 1,000 yards rushing, 4.6 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions, 214 yards, and then 1 receiving touchdown. So a stat line, 16 games played, 1,049 rushing yards, 4.6 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns, 39 receptions, 214 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So 6 total touchdowns that he accounted for. This is what we're adding into the backfield. Now, is this an upgrade over Khalil Herbert? Yes. The reason is because he's a better receiver, number 1, and number 2, he's also a better blocker. Too many times we saw Khalil Herbert get blown up by the rush and release too quickly, or not make sure that he set his block before releasing. Too many times we saw Khalil Herbert make mistakes in blocking and not receiving the ball. And do you know how we know that? Because he was beaten by Roschon Johnson at receptions. So what do we have here? What do we have? We've got 3 elite athletes who are now able to have the ball thrown to them. Well, Bleeves, what about, is there anything else that's really cooking with this offense? Yeah, Rome Odunze. What did Rome Odunze do in his final season in college? 92 receptions, 1,640 yards, averaging 17.8 yards per reception with 13 touchdowns. A couple of rushes, no big deal. And a couple of returns, again, no big deal. But this guy was a phenomenal athlete, continued to excel after having back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. And look, there were a lot of people who said he should have won the Biletnikoff Award. Should he have? Probably. But we had already decided that Marvin Harrison was that guy. We had basically decided at that point that he was the guy. So we anointed the guy that we had already chosen in that context. Did this guy have better stats? Yeah, probably. Did Malik Neighbors have better stats? Yeah, probably. But they also had more dynamic quarterbacks running more proficient offenses. So, maybe, just maybe, it's fair to say that Marvin Harrison didn't get the looks that he should have, but still won the Blitnikoff Award. But Rome Odunze should have probably won. Malik Neighbors. Nobody would be mad if any one of these three guys had won, except the big fans. Okay, so this is what you have. You've just added in. You've got a 1,364-yard receiver. You got an 1,100-yard receiver. You got a 1,000-yard rusher. And what are you adding? 1,640-yard and 92 receptions. College player for Caleb Williams to start throwing the ball. So is that enough for you? You said no. What do you mean no? What are you talking about? No. Okay. What about Cole Kmet? Let's talk about Cole Kmet, because we're not done yet. We're just getting started on the goddamn offense of the Chicago Bears. Because guess what? Cole Kmet last year, 73 receptions, played in every game. He has played in every game in his season. Look, this guy does not miss games. He's tough as nails. Had 719 yards receiving, 9.8 yards per catch, 6 touchdowns, and even had a long of 53 yards. Now, he does have 1 fumble per season. So my bad, Cole. So this is who you've got as your outlet guy. But guess what? Guess what? Do you know who grades out as an elite run blocker? Cole Kmet. It turns out that Cole Kmet is also one of the best run blockers and pass protectors of tight ends in the league. So what do you have here? Look, you don't have George Kittle. It's fair to say that you don't have George Kittle. Maybe this guy, if Cole Kmet continues to get better, he's still going to be one of the better in the league. Okay. Travis Kelce, George Kittle, probably in a league of their own. But everybody else, Cole Kmet is quickly rising up the ranks of those guys. Now, what is it you said? Wait a minute. You said you're not happy with that. What about Gerald Everett? What about Gerald Everett? What did Gerald Everett do last year? Okay, I'm glad you asked. Let's look at it. He played in 15 games, had 51 receptions, 411 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, problem here, he did fumble the ball 3 times last year. So if that's a non-starter for you, I mean, I'm sorry. He did have 3 fumbles. So Gerald, you better not be Butterfingers this year. But you know what he did do? You know what did happen? Just to be clear here, he is also an elite run blocker and pass protector at the tight end position. So when you're running 2 tight end sets, guess what? You have an elite bookend to the line when you need to get yardage, when you need to run the ball. You're going to have people who are capable of being good blockers. We're actually going to look at stats, by the way, on the offensive line, or at least part of the offensive line, and you'll get an idea of, if we're still continuing to improve, and if we agree that people are continuing to improve as they get their second and their third and their fourth years, and they get better and better and better as they go, then guess what? We're going to get better and better as we go. This team is not done yet. Gerald Everett continuing to be one of those guys. But wait a minute. That's not it. That's not it. You know why? Because Khalil Herbert is still out here. Now, Khalil Herbert was injured, only played in 12 games, but had 611 yards rushing, averaging 4.6 yards per carry. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, if that's the case, why do we even get DeAndre Swift? Well, I'm glad you asked that. He had 2 touchdowns, by the way. Now, the problem with Khalil Herbert is that he was not a great blocker. He was not a great run blocker, and he was not a great pass protector. DeAndre Swift, much better at pass protection than Khalil Herbert. So the question then becomes, who's the starter? Obviously, it's DeAndre Swift at this point, but Khalil Herbert, in fact, has the ability at 4.6 yards per carry. And let's go back to the year before, 129 carries, 731 and 5.7. Now, here's the thing. I think he's trade bait. I think that Khalil Herbert probably doesn't make the team when it comes down to it, and then we trade him off. Do you know why? Because and if he's not, and he's here, then guess what? Oh my God, we have 2 very, very good, maybe not elite, and I'll grant you, maybe not elite, but very, very good running backs. But you know what? It doesn't stop there, because guess what? We back him up with another guy, Roschon Johnson, who in 15 games this season 81 carries, 352 yards, 4.3 yards. Still a great run. If you're averaging over 4 yards a carry in the NFL, then you're doing a decent job. 2 touchdowns. Now remember, when the ball got close and stuff like that, Justin Fields was the guy, right? We're not going to have that anymore. We're not going to have that. Caleb Williams is not a run first type guy who's just going to continue to run the ball like crazy. So what you now have is Roschon Johnson. But here's where it gets very interesting. Roschon Johnson, 34 receptions, 209 yards. This guy also had more yards through the air. He was the guy that did it when Khalil Herbert couldn't, coming out of the backfield, which is why, in my opinion, Khalil Herbert becomes expendable, because you have Khalil Herbert in Roschon Johnson, or at least a close proximity, because of his ability to receive out of the backfield. Now, if you want the bruising runner, it's still DeAndre Swift over Khalil Herbert, even though I like what I see from Khalil Herbert. So what do you have? At every skill position on this team, you have a monster of a player who's capable and ready to perform at a high level. You've got DJ Moore, you've got Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift, Khalil Herbert, Roschon Johnson. There are 8 players right there capable of breaking tackles, scoring touchdowns, playing at or near an elite level. And that doesn't even begin to mention Tyler Scott, who we won't get into today, who should have a fantastic move in his second year and get quite a bit better. So what is there that's left? Well, let's go to Twitter and let's look at, this is a wild sort of list here, and this is going to give you an idea. A lot of people have complained about the offensive line. Well, what does it look like? Well, if we grant here some of the things on it, let's look at here. You can see number 14 as the 14th best offensive tackle in all of football. In all of football, who do we have? Darnell Wright, clocking in at number 14. Now, do you know who you don't see on this list? And this is where we have a problem, right? You know who you don't see on this list? Larry Borom. You don't see Larry Borom on this list. Why? When he was a starter for half the season. Well, that was because Braxton Jones came in. And now Braxton Jones, it should be noted, Braxton Jones came in right here at number 54. So, Braxton Jones, the question is, will he get better? Will he improve? That is a valid question. However, again, I preface this by saying, do you continue to improve as a young player? He's not yet playing for his contract, or he's getting to the point where it's time to start playing for the contract. So what do you expect out of him? I expect him to get better than he was last year if he makes it top 40, if he just makes a little bit of a leap. Is it enough to keep Karan Amagaji out of the lineup? Maybe. Maybe give Karan another year to get ready to play. I mean, he's obviously at this point the replacement, but Darnell Wright is an elite top 15 tackle so far in this league. So with that being the case, what exactly do we have here? Well, what we've got is the makings of an elite team. Now, remember Coleman Shelton, remember Ryan Bates. We have better backups than we had before. We have better starters than we had last year. Tevin Jenkins, if he stays healthy, that's a big if, but if he stays healthy, then we're good. If not, Coleman Shelton steps in, and he is almost as good, or at least as good. We were big fans of him. Ryan Poles, big fans. And look, Ryan Poles, other than Chase Claypool, who, by the way, is a phenomenal athlete, but an absolute head case, fair to assess. Chase Claypool, one bad decision out of a lot of decisions that Ryan Poles has made so far. Now, take it another step further. Nate Davis, he had some family drama, some family issues that he was going through and he was dealing with last season. Does he get focused now, and does he improve? I think the answer to that is a resounding yes. There's nothing, and anything can happen, but this is a better team overall. Darnell Wright going to make that elite top 10 in the tackle position. I mean, most probably that's probably what happens here. Matt Pryor as the backup over Larry Borom, or Karan Amagaji as the backup over Larry Borom. Does that make the team better? Yeah. Is Larry Borum desirable in the league? As a matter of fact, he is. He still has value in this league. And in fact, it is entirely possible that we see Braxton, that we see if Karan Emagaji, here's the deal. If Karan Emagaji is as good as advertised, and we start to see we start to see him play at a high level, if we see that, then what we're going to see as the very next step, the very next step will be Larry Borum gets released and we save the payroll and probably make a move on Yannick Ngakoue or Emmanuel Agba or somebody on the defensive line, which we'll worry about later. We'll talk about the defense in a future episode. But if we do that, then Matt Pryor becomes, or Karan Emagaji becomes the backup if they're capable. And if they are, Larry Borum is gone. And we're going to be better for it. Again, Khalil Herbert probably gone. Travis Homer still on the roster, so he'll still be there. So this has the makings of a dynamic team coming into this season. You've seen every single one of these position players. Look, these are upgrades. These are massive upgrades in many cases for this team. So what do we do with those massive upgrades? It's actually very simple. Caleb Williams is going to be your rookie of the year. He's not going to be denied. He's been living for this his entire. And look, we've given him the opportunity by creating a scenario and a situation in which he can only excel. We've given him all of the tools around him. We've given him the line that he needs in order to be successful. And I'll be fair with you, okay? Let's just say that the Chicago Bears line still needs work. It would be fair to say that the Chicago Bears line is not going to be the elite one in the league. It's not going to be the Detroit Lions. It's not going to be the San Francisco 49ers. But if it's better, remember, it comes in ranked as about the middle of the pack as an offensive line. If it really starts to gel, if Darnell Wright gets a little bit better, if Braxton Jones, if these are ifs, of course. But if they continue to improve a little bit, if Nate Davis is focused, if Tevin Jenkins stays healthy, if Ryan Bates is as good as advertised, if all these pieces fall into place and this line gels, and this is suddenly a top 10 line, this will be the best offensive line that Caleb Williams has ever had, which will give him a little bit of time and a little bit of certainty, a little less need to be light on his feet and move around. This is what's getting ready to happen. It is my belief here that the Chicago Bears, I'm telling you, 13-4, this team is going to shock the world. This is the Philadelphia Eagles from a few years ago. I'm telling you right now. And I told you that at the end of last year. I didn't expect them to lose 4 games in a row to come out of the gate. But I said that during the course of the year, halfway through the year, we'll start to see them really get better. We'll start to see them improve. They ended the season 5-3, went 7-6 after those first 3 games. So this team continued to improve and accelerate the curve as they went along. Now, when I talk about the defense, Montez Sweat been here an extra year. He'll be a little bit better. He'll be more acclimated to the system. Gervon Dexter is going to make that big second-year leap. Tyreek Stevenson is going to make that big second-year leap. Jaquan Brisker is making that third-year leap. These guys are going to get better and better and better, this team. Jack Sanborn, he's going to make that third-year leap. These guys are going to be better. They're going to be more seasoned. They're going to be more comfortable with their roles. Like I told you before, I believe I said this yesterday, the thing that Jalen Johnson complained about was situational situations. We were not focused on those situational sort of things that we leaned on, that we need to learn. We need to have the walkthroughs and do that. Well, you know what? Because we were still learning fundamentals and didn't have a coach, because the coach still don't know what happened. But this year, there's going to be a lot more focus on situational elements and a lot more focus on being ready and prepared. And if this team is ready and prepared, then this is a 13-4 team. And look, I'm pie in the skying this one. I am pie in the skying this one like crazy. But I do believe that what we will see is one of the best teams in the NFL by the end of the season. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Again, we're cutting these a little bit short because there's not a whole lot going on. We're waiting for a little bit more news to come out on the OTAs to see how everything is kind of gelling and how the team is getting along. I think that we're going to be in good hands with Caleb Williams. He'll be the rookie of the year. In fact, he might even end up offensive player of the year, and not just rookie of the year. This might be one of those transcendent moments, the likes of which the Chicago Bears could only have ever hoped for. But again, let me know what you think in the comments down below. We're going to get out of here. Time to get that swole on. You guys have a good day. Fuck Green Bay, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.